Welcome back to today's Explainer. Have you ever looked back at a major decision and just thought, why on earth did I choose that? Because honestly, it's a completely universal struggle. We literally spend our entire lives trying to make the absolute best choices, right? But we're constantly fighting against strict mental, emotional, and practical limits. The reality is, when we make decisions, we rarely have all the facts, and we never seem to have enough time. So today, we're going to break down exactly why our decision-making process so easily goes off the rails, and how new assistive technology is actually stepping in to, well, save us from ourselves.
So why do our brains sabotage our choices? It's such a fascinating question because it really gets to the core of our daily reality. I mean, we almost never get to make decisions with every single piece of information neatly laid out for us. And we definitely don't have infinite time to just sit back, ponder, and evaluate every angle. To just function day to day, our brains are basically forced to compromise just to survive the sheer volume of choices we face. But how exactly does this internal sabotage happen, and why are we so consistently blind to it?
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the human mind traps and our internal flaws.
You see, our minds absolutely love taking the path of least resistance, which, as you can guess, quickly turns into massive roadblocks. We cling to outdated beliefs simply because, hey, it's a lot easier than rethinking a complex problem from scratch. We get squeezed by short deadlines that force our hand, and a lack of money that heavily restricts our options. And let's be real, at the end of a long day, pure mental fatigue sets in, right? It makes the easiest option look like a total lifesaver. But all of these forces are constantly pushing us away from finding the absolute best solution, basically forcing us to settle for choices that are merely good enough.
And that leads us right into one of our absolute most dangerous blind spots, which is chasing lost money. We're talking about continuing to waste money on a completely bad idea simply because a bunch of money was already spent on it. We have all been there. You pour resources into a failing project, the stress mounts up, and eventually, you actually forget why you even needed to make the decision in the first place. We literally lose sight of our original goals entirely and end up focusing on the wrong things just to justify our past actions.
Moving right along to Section 2, real-world roadblocks and escalating the tension.
Now, as we all know, real life rarely gives us the luxury of gathering every single little detail before forcing us to act. Because the clock is always ticking and time is always running out, we rely heavily on fast gut feelings instead of careful, measured analysis. And when you start stacking up external constraints like super strict corporate budgets or inflexible organizational rules, the pressure really compounds. You'll often find that the final outcome is practically dictated for us before we even have a chance to step back and make a truly independent choice.
Now, what's really interesting here is this fundamental psychological quirk we all share. It's an extreme fear of losing things that vastly outweighs the much smaller joy of winning them. It's wild, but this skewed internal scale heavily distorts our daily decisions. We will often make highly irrational, overly defensive choices just to avoid a perceived loss, completely ignoring much better opportunities that might be sitting right in front of us. Our brains are literally hardwired to protect what we have, even if just letting go would lead to a much bigger reward down the line.
And think about this. Our society constantly praises fast, bold choices as these major personal wins. We applaud people for trusting their gut on the fly, and we treat rapid-fire decision-making as this ultimate sign of strong leadership and undeniable confidence. But ironically, this constant cultural self-praise so often leads to rushed mistakes. It encourages us to bypass critical thinking and just leap before we look. And that results in highly flawed choices that essentially masquerade as confident victories, simply because they were made quickly.
Which brings us nicely to Section 3, the AI assistant, bridging the gap.
There is just a striking contrast between our stressful, emotional human state and the capabilities of new digital assistants. While we rely so heavily on unpredictable gut feelings, deal with the intense fear of losing, and let's face it, totally succumb to end-of-day fatigue, AI operates completely differently. It relies purely on facts. It remains completely emotionless, totally unaffected by the pressure of the moment. And crucially, it never tires out. Its analytical standards stay exactly the same all day long, giving us a perfectly consistent baseline of logic, right when our own human energy is crashing.
And because of those specific traits, AI can scan massive amounts of information in mere seconds, purely to look at the facts and highlight risks. Obviously, this saves us incredibly valuable time that we just don't have. But more importantly, it spots our hidden blind spots. It catches things like chasing that lost money we talked about earlier, or rushing a critical choice just to project some fake boldness. And it catches them long before any final decisions are locked in, and the real damage is done.
So, let's look at Section 4.
catching our mistakes, and how this mechanism actually works.
Let's walk step by step through exactly how this system functions. To actually work effectively, AI needs a structured record of how your decision is being made. Step 1. You record the starting goal. By continuously comparing your current plan back to that original starting goal, AI can easily spot when you've drifted off track. Step 2. Track decision speed. This is exactly how the system recognizes and warns you against that rushed, overly bold decision-making we just discussed. And finally, Step 3. Check assumptions against real facts. This step is a total game changer because it effectively neutralizes the personal bias that so often ruins our choices.
And this really brings us to a critical realization. Absolutely no one makes decisions in a vacuum. We are all bound by strict mental and real-world limits. But by actually accepting those natural limits, we can finally use tools like AI to make much smarter, clearer choices. So, I'll leave you with this. If AI can see your blind spots, are you really ready to let it look? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep making smart choices.